pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. I am sorry if my getting lost kept you waiting on the stairs too long. Please, I apologize, but Waze was not my best friend today. My name is Jane Thomas. I am from the Port Washington Manhasset League of Women Voters, so I have no horse in this race, so to speak. I would like to read. I would like to read the League's mission statement right now. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government and works to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influences public policy through education and advocacy. We'd love some of you to join the League of Women Voters, but I won't overgo. Okay. So, we have our 5 candidates here, and I would like to tell you all that Ms. Tabella has won the straw. She picked the short straw and has opted to go last. So she will make her statement last, and we'll go. I'm very able to do that. Okay, so we will we'll go first then with Mr. Ligori, and so on and so forth. And the exact same thing will be happening at the end with their closing statements. First, I'm going to read the procedures for our league candidates tonight. As I already said, I'm from outside the area. I'm from Port Washington. Candidates have drawn lots, and as I say, Ms. Ligori won. Cards have been distributed by volunteers from the league, and they're being collected and vetted so that we do not have any repetition or abuse of cards. I'm sure there won't be, not in this nice crowd. Questions must be confined to the issues of this campaign, and no long statements will be read if they're too long, not of a question nature. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes. We're very strict about that. We have a timekeeper here from the League of Women Voters of Port Washington, I believe, too. And she is Michelle Mano. Raise your hand, Michelle. And please stand there and show the cards. As it gets to be 30 seconds before the finishing 2 minutes, she will hold that sign up for each of the candidates. And she will also have a stop sign. Yes. So that is how we're running this thing. After all candidates have spoken, the moderator will read the questions, and no questions will be addressed to only one individual candidate. Candidates will be given 1 minute to reply, answer to the question, and that will be closely monitored as well, 1 minute. A league member, as I say, she's acting as timekeeper. Candidates will have a 2-minute closing statement, as I say, in the same order as the opening. And since the purpose of the meeting is to determine the candidates' views, and no substitute speakers have been allowed, or never allowed. And of course, no props, charts, or visuals are allowed for campaign literature. If there's any that are around, we'll take it from here. There is videotaping going on. Where is the videotape? Person? Okay, good, I see you. The content of that videotape belongs to the League of Women Voters. Only the videographer is authorized, which he is by the League, and the candidates now signed on by the campaign, record this forum. And that applies also, of course, to videotaping in the audience. So please don't do that. We obviously don't want that for the purpose of cutting up the tape and making something for social media for one candidate or another. That's just not the way we roll, right? It's not fair, and we're not allowing it. So anyone who's doing it, just put your phone away and don't even think about it. I think that's about it. have the right, of course, the league to publish it in its entirety. It's not going to be cut. It never is. So, now, I'm going to start with the opening statements of Mr. Lynbrook. And I'm going to ask you to hold your applause until all 5 have made their statements. And then you can clap like crazy, right? And this is awkward. And that'll be the end of clapping until the closing statements.
Are you working with them?
It will take up much too much time.
Is she working with you?
All kinds of energy is used.
No,
Probably not good
I'm
stuff.
sorry. You're going to have to leave if you keep your camera
It's
up,
clapping our
okay?
heads off, you know? So we're just going
I'm
to
sorry.
do
That's
it
what
at
they
the
told
end
me.
of
Okay.
5
I
statements.
don't mean, you know,
With
you
that
could
being
take whatever
said,
you want to. But
I will
it's not up
turn
to me.
this over to Mr. Lynbrook with his 2-minute opening statement.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Lynbrook. I've been a resident of this village for 62 years. I'm a graduate of Chaminade High School and Fairfield University. I've got a long history of service within the village. I've been a volunteer fireman for 40+ years, serving as captain of one of their units. I've been chairman of the Architectural Review Board, served there for 12 years, where I successfully negotiated a deal with McDonald's and CVS to where you see those buildings that we have today. I also worked summers for the DPW, and I also was the housing inspector for the village, where I was part of a team that brought 40 cases to trial and 30 more in the wings being brought to trial. I have a lot of credentials in business. I served senior level positions for Fortune 500 companies. For example, CNA Global, I was a senior position there, where the company was worth in excess of a few $1 billion. In those capacities, I learned very good lessons in people management and problem-solving skills. And I hope to use those lessons to help run the village successfully and efficiently. And I thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Lynbrook. Mr. O'Neill, you are speaking next. 2 minutes.
I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for letting me speak tonight. I would also like to thank the Lynbrook Chamber of Commerce for this event. Also, I'd like to mention the last time my wife and I were here was Valentine's Day 2017, and Bill Mayer Hendrick renewed our marriage vows. Since then, my wife and I always had a special bond with Bill Mayer Hendrick. Bill was so thrilled he married us, and I love that we have that memory to cherish. Let me introduce myself. My name is David O'Neill. I am running for trustee of Lynbrook. I'm not affiliated with either party. I am running independently by myself. A little history about me and my family. My mother was born in Italy, met my father in Brooklyn. We moved to Lynbrook in 1972 when I was 4 years old. I grew up on the south side of the village. I currently live in the Yorkshire section of the village of Lynbrook with my beautiful wife, Claudine. My daughter Teresa currently attends Lynbrook Middle School and will be attending Lynbrook High School next year. I am a board member of the Lynbrook Chamber of Commerce. I coached boys tennis lacrosse for over 10 years. I have and had businesses in the village of Lynbrook. Great Bay Realty, Peak Research, handling title insurance for all real estate transactions. I am a licensed mortgage loan originator, a licensed health insurance agent, a licensed life insurance agent, also a notary, and owned All Metro Mortgage and Village Car Service. When I owned Village Car Service, I was honored in 2015, Distinguished Businessman of the Year by the East Rockaway Chamber of Commerce. 2016, Business Person of the Year by the Nassau Council of Chamber of Commerce. 2017, Business Person of the Year by the Lynbrook Chamber of Commerce. 2017 Businessman of the Year by the Lynbrook Republican Party. I look forward to any and all questions this evening.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Appreciate it. Mr. Baccio, your turn.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. Thank you also to the Chamber and League for sponsoring tonight's meet and greet. My wife Danielle and I moved to Lynbrook from Forest Hills about 14 years ago because we were looking to return to a more suburban lifestyle and to start a family. Danielle and I are both practicing attorneys who are passionate about our children's education and sportsmanship. In addition to being a partner at a mid-sized law firm in Nassau County, I have also been teaching at Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs for about 17 years, where I've taught process improvement and performance management to graduate students. Prior to entering the private sector, I spent many years in New York City government under a couple different administrations, serving in a variety of administrative roles. I have worked in the Mayor's Office of Operations, Public Safety Division, Department of Finance, the New York City Economic Development Corporation, as well as the former Department of Juvenile Justice, where I proudly transformed the worst jail in the city to its flagship in the agency. In addition to my public service with the city, I've also served the village of Lynbrook in several capacities. I was a former assistant prosecutor, former member and chairman of the Board of Zoning Appeals, former chairman of the Village Ethics Committee, and of course, I've been a trustee for the past year and a half. However, one of my most rewarding roles with Lynbrook is working with its young athletes in several different sports. And that goes especially true with the Lynbrook Titans football program, where I've coached for the last several years. My family loves this village, and we are proud to call Lynbrook our home. With all the community events, family activities, great schools, reputation for safety, and great neighbors, it's easy to see why families remain in the village generation after generation. Tonight, I look forward to answering your questions about how I, along with my running mates, Mayor Alan Beach and Trustee Anne-Marie Reardon, are committed to not only preserving our village's quality of life, but making sure that there is a sound plan in place for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to stop for a moment and ask that we don't talk about being in partnership. If this is you're running for your own seat, and let's try to keep it that way, okay? Thank you. Now, Ms. Reardon.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anne-Marie Reardon, and I'm honored to be here before you tonight. It has been my distinct honor for the last 4 years to be the second woman elected to serve on the Lynbrook Village Board, a position and responsibility that I take very seriously. Importantly, I'd like to thank Mary Colway for our first female trustee and sole woman mayor for paving the way for me on the Lynbrook Village Board. Now for my background. I grew up locally right in Malvern. I have been a Lynbrook resident for 14 years. I attended Kellenberg Memorial High School and hold a bachelor's and a master's from Adelphi University. My husband Keith, a finance professional, and I were married 19 years ago. We bought our house on Vincent Avenue, and I'm sure as many of you remember, we purchased our home as young parents with 3 little boys, James, Keith, and Matthew. Soon after we moved into Lynbrook, we had our daughter, Grace. After many years of staying at home, I returned to work, and I worked as a community liaison for Assembly Brian Curran, and now currently working at Kellenberg Memorial High School in the Assistant Principal of Personnel and Communications Office. Before serving on the board, I was always very active in my children's school and my parish and the village. I have served 3 terms as the Our Lady of Peace Parents Association President, and until then, and continued on as the Treasurer. I also worked with the marching band, and one of my favorite things I have done for the past 8 years was to work with residents Kelly and Danny Ambrosio on Christopher's Hemophilia Dinner. And it's to watch it grow from a small event in Vulcan to now being an absolutely blowout, huge, over 500 attended event in the Coral House, where we have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for hemophilia research. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now, Ms. Bella.
Hello, my name is Anne Bell, and I'm running for Lynbrook Village Trustee. I am married and I have 3 young children, ages 3, 6, and 8. I fell in love with Lynbrook at a very young age, as I have many friends and family that live here. I live in the Yorkshire section of Lynbrook with the beautiful Tudor-style homes and tree-lined streets and wonderful neighbors. I have so many wonderful childhood memories. I am active school volunteer, PTA member, and class parent. I have developed strategic planning skills during my 25 years working at top firms in the tax, accounting, and finance industries in New York City. I then transitioned to life as a mother and an entrepreneur,
running a small business along with my husband. We were ecstatic when we found our forever home and moved to Lynbrook almost 9 years ago. We chose Lynbrook because of the great school district and the family-oriented community. We are invested both emotionally and financially in the welfare and the direction of the village. I am also the co-founder of the Lynbrook Community Alliance, a civic organization that led the fight to stop the gun range in 2016 and most recently the Lynbrook Cornerstone. I learned firsthand early on about the lack of transparency in our village government, along with the importance of residents to get involved and voice their concerns. Because if we don't, decisions will be made without our input. Why would the village entertain these types of proposals in our community that would be so detrimental to the residents? Time and time again, our forever home, our well-being, and our quality of life was being put to the test. You can only imagine the fear I had and the pit in my stomach, so I fought really hard to put a stop to both those projects. As an experienced community leader, I have a strong commitment to our village. The confidence to stand up for what is right, the courage to make tough decisions, and most important, being the voice of our people, the residents. The Village of Lynbrook needs strong leadership and experienced business-oriented individuals, and that's why I decided to run for Village Trustee.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Excellent opening statement. Let's hear it for Okay. So we'll do the same thing. We'll start with Mr. Ligori on question number 1 and go around, the entire thing. I'll promise to keep track of who's answering when. First question, Mr. Ligori. Could you outline your goals for being a Lynbrook Village Trustee? All of you will get the same question, of course. Outline your goals, point by point.
Certainly. We've come up with an 8-point plan to move this village forward. The plan includes reducing taxes, helping the police become safer, reduce congestion, and become more transparent in the projects that we receive. The other things that we'd like to accomplish is to increase more income streams. By doing that, we'll help stabilize taxes and hopefully reduce taxes as well. We'll bring more income into the village. You'll be able to help the police department and fire departments, the seniors and veterans with their concerns in the village. Thank you very much.
Good, thank you. Mr. O'Neill, same question. Would you like me to read it again? I think he's going to.
Can you repeat the question?
I will. I realize that I've omitted something, and that is that we're so happy to be doing this in tandem with the Chamber of Commerce, and especially Mike, who helped me get here tonight. So thank you, good to do. Okay, so the question is, could you outline your goals for being a Lynbrook Village Trustee? Point by point.
My goal is, we have a serious problem with our downtown area and surrounding areas. We have vacant stores. Hello?
Start again, sir.
Okay. We have a serious problem right now with vacant stores all over the village. HSBC is now consolidating. They are moving to Rockville Center. Angelina's is moving. That's 2 vacant stores, 3 vacant stores right there. We have to fill these stores. We have to bring businesses in here, and we're scaring them away. One of the things is we're cutting, everyone's saying we're going to cut taxes, freeze taxes. How all of a sudden, because everyone's contested with this election, we're able to freeze taxes, cut taxes with no budget. Simpson and Bowles could not figure out this budget that fast. Okay? We need to do it by bringing in revenue and to cut the taxes. Not just go out there and cut taxes and insult my intelligence that it's an election year, we're going to cut taxes and kick the can down the road so me and my kids have to pay for it down the road.
Thank you. Okay, now Mr. Baccio, same question. Your goals.
Yes. We have developed a 5-point plan which includes keeping a lid on taxes, rebuilding our infrastructure, focusing on our parks and upgrading, and looking at public safety as well as constituent services. Our priorities with respect to this is essentially how do we get the village to be in a position where residents are going to be able to stay here in the long term. And in order to do that, we need to address the tax burden that's been really plaguing us. And to do that, we need to attract businesses that will expand the tax base. But you do that by making the village an attractive place and by building on those core services that I just talked about. The infrastructure, addressing parking, park upgrades, make it more beautiful in the area so it's more attractive. Keeping it safe. No village, no resident wants to come here unless the village remains to be the safe village that it is. And of course, supplying everybody with an expanded array of constituent services, which also includes programming and recreation.
Thank you. Ms. Reardon, same question.
Okay, yes, thank you. As Rob just said next to me, we do have a 5-point plan, but one of the most important pieces of this plan is that taxes are very important. But of all these 5 points, we have in the past few years made an enormous amount of strides in these areas. We have paved many roads. We have had our taxes under the tax cap for the past 2 years. You know, the budget is a work in progress. It takes a little, you know, it's always working. We always know what we can budget into the future. The parks, we're beautifying the parks. We're beautifying the downtown to draw in businesses so that they want to come here and that they will want to invest in Lynbrook. Services, we're actually looking to open the library on Sundays and extending the services for our residents to draw in and have young families stay. So we are actually on a very good path, and we have a lot we can see to be done in the future.
Great. Thank you so much. Ms. Tavella. I think only one mic is working.
No, it's working, but you know what, it's working.
Okay. All right. Ms. Tavella, you're opposed. That noise is... Maybe, although you just hold it, makes noise. Yes. Go. Same question. Do you want me to read it again?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sure. Could you outline your goals for being a Lynbrook Village trustee?
Sure, we have an 8-point plan. First item on that list is to stop the Cornerstone forever. Second one is to reduce taxes and stop overspending. Increase revenue with a master plan to determine the needs of the village and listen to our residents. Fight for our fair share of sales tax revenue. Have an open door policy where residents can come in and speak with us during normal business hours. Enhance senior and veteran exceptions, and many other ideas that we're going to do for the village. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Antoinette.
Okay, no clapping, remember the rule. Don't get me angry. Okay, I think it's unfair that you are going to be the first person all the time, so we're going to switch it. And we'll start with you, Mr. O'Neill, this time. Okay, here's the second question. How do you plan to increase the tax base in the village of Lynbrook in light of the lack of parking available?
It's funny you bring up the parking situation, because I'd love to know what the arrangements was with all the elected officials with the movie theater, and how many parking spots the village has to supply to the movie theater in a certain amount of radius, 4-hour parking. I don't know if you everyone realized, 3-hour parking behind, I'm sorry?
Can't hear you.
Oh, I don't know if you realize, behind Miller's used to be 3 hours, now it's 4 hours. Why all of a sudden did they change it to 4 hours? Is there some kind of agreement that was made behind closed doors that the village residents are not aware of? And now we have a more serious parking problem than we had before. The movie theater was a great idea, but it was just done totally wrong. And it took 20 years to do it. I don't know who or what planned it, but the parking problem is worse now than it ever was before. And we have to address it, and we have to fix the problem that they made.
Thank you. Mr. Baccio, same question. Sure. How do you plan to increase the tax base in the village of Lynbrook in light of the lack of parking available?
Well, obviously the tax base is critical for us to try to widen so that we can offset the burden with respect to the residents. As for parking issues, we've done a lot of things over the last couple of years or so to address some of them, and that's negotiated more spaces from private entities so that they're available for public. We've also negotiated more spaces with the Long Island Railroad. We've increased the signage issues by running with the streetscapes programs, more signage, lighted signage, so that the residents and shoppers have a better idea of where to go. And also, we were one of the first villages in, I believe, Long Island to actually institute a parking application on your smartphone so as to make it more convenient for shoppers to get in and out and not really hit with the burden of having to move their cars so that they can stay and linger a little bit more and spend more money in the village. So I think at the end of the day, in addition to those issues, we're also going to look to see what type of, what other types of businesses may come in the area that would come up with different types of scenarios where it would be part of a project to address the parking.
Thank you. Ms. Reardon, same question. Parking in the village.
Now it's working. So I told the other. Okay. Yes, I think it is actually, parking is definitely an issue with bringing in businesses into our downtown. However, as Rob did say, we have negotiated the use of private lots on their off-business hours so that residents can park there without penalty. We have negotiated with the Long Island Railroad to get 233 spots back that are now village-run. We also reconfigured Columbus Drive and added 28 spots. So we are moving ahead to try to alleviate as much of the parking problem as we can. We have actually made a change in this area, but of course we need to review it and look further in how we can find more parking for businesses to be able to come and sustain their business in Lynbrook.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Tabella, I'm sorry.
Thank you. We will seek new developments that can add additional parking spaces within our village. We will also seek to possibly change a few of the metered parking along Atlantic Avenue, allowing 30-minute parking so residents could pull in, run their errands quickly, and then jump out. So allowing for the traffic flow to run smoother throughout the village. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Lynbrook. All right, Mr. Liguori, same question about parking.
Okay, you're asking for a simple solution to a very complex question, a question that's been going on for years within this village. But I look at it two ways. I've identified areas of the village where we could put new parking in without putting a parking garage in. Number two, other villages that I've seen, they run a trolley system. We have parking areas that are being underutilized. Why not get a free trolley system to shuttle people back and forth to the unused areas, bring them through the village so they can see the wonderful shops that we have and increase the spending in the village. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. So the next question is for you, Mr. Baccio. Okay. Explain the Cornerstone project and how it would affect our village. Are you in favor of it, and why?
As we have repeatedly stated over and over again, the Cornerstone project was dead as of November 19th. It was further killed after the developer pulled the application sometime a couple of weeks ago. And the reason he was holding on to it was, I believe, to preserve any kind of Article 78 rights, which may have been against the village due to some of the behind-the-scenes shenanigans that may have been going on in prejudicing the project. As for a project like that, we killed it because we felt it was too big and not keeping in the character of this village. And any project that is not in keeping with the character of this village, we will not vote for.
Okay, thank you. Same question, Ms. Reardon.
Thank you. As Mr. Baccio just said, that we did say on November 19th that we would not approve the Cornerstone. It seems to be that it's been put into our words into our mouth, that it was still coming. It was never coming. When we gave our word was our word. It is honesty. The project was not within the scope of the village. It was too big. But it's also our obligation as an elected board to review projects and see if they would benefit our village. And that is our job to do. So I have no idea why we're still talking about a project that is no longer on the table.
Hold your applause, please. Thank you. Please hold your applause. Same question now to Ms. Tavel. Are you okay?
The Cornerstone project is a massive 6-story, 200-plus apartment complex.
Excuse me, she can't hear you. I think you're in the back.
The Cornerstone project is a massive 6-story, 200-plus apartment complex and a 4-story standalone parking garage. I wasn't born yesterday, and you have to be naive to think that this deal is dead, considering how much money Mr. Bartone has invested in the project. And he has clearly stated several times with his intentions. And how many times over the past 15 years did Mr. Browning come back about the Marriott deal? And even he is still in the picture. And why did Reardon and Baccio vote in favor of Giordano to submit grant application back in June 2018? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Liguori?
All right, let's stop talking about the bricks and mortars of the Cornerstone. I don't care if that's here or if it's not here. What I'm very upset about is the process and the fact that you would even dare consider giving a contractor a tax break which would increase the taxes to the rest of the village. How dare you do that without even discussing with the people of the village? You killed 3 meetings in the village. How transparent is that? The Cornerstone project was nothing more than an attempt to put money in the pockets of the contractor. That's what a pilot is. Pay in lieu of taxes. So the tax burden would have been $2 million or so for the building itself. The contractor would only have to pay $50,000 for the length of the pilot. As the values increase of that building, his part of it stays staying, and our part increases. You are mortgaging the future of our people in the village and our older people that are just holding on to their house in building. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. O'Neill or Bobby, thank you. Mr. O'Neill. Sure. Explain the Cornerstone project and how it would affect our village. Are you in favor of it and why?
Well, I'm not in favor of a 6-story building, and we have, like I said before, we have a serious parking issue. Like I said, we have a serious parking issue. 6 stories is not going to, it's too big, way too big. And if anybody here thinks that the builder or the developer is not going to reapply after this election, you're being very naive. He could apply 1,000 times. So whether that he said, and you know what, we need to do something with the village. Obviously that development was too big. But like I said before, we have vacant stores, we need to get more foot traffic, and we need to get housing, residential luxury housing in this village to get foot traffic in here again. And then when you have that, business will come. And when you have businesses come, taxes will be paid and our business, our village will survive in a better way.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Reardon, you're going to be up first. I'm not sure, okay. What do you think the most important issue is that Lynbrook is facing, and what do you plan on doing about it? The most important, okay?
Well, first off, I want to say that Mr. Baccio and I voted for a grant to get $10 million for the downtown development. So that's what it's about.
I'm sorry, but to stop you there, I'd like you not to be teaming up.
Okay.
Okay, just talk about yourself. That's why we're here.
Okay, but she put us together and I was just answering her question.
Speak for yourself, please.
Okay. I agreed to a grant that would give the village a $10 million if they want it through the state for downtown development and improvement. What I think the most important thing is getting control of the tax base and the taxes for our residents. Nassau County, with the new tax assessment and the uncertainty, and even today in Newsday talking about how school taxes might break the cap.
Ms. Reardon, I don't think you're answering the question.
You said
of your most important issue you're talking about here.
Taxes. I said taxes.
That's fine.
You know, taxes are definitely an issue, and with the Nassau County assessment and the Long Island Newsday posted today that the schools may have a tax increase because of the budget. So taxes are my most important.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Tavella, I'll read it again for you, okay? What do you think the most important issue is that's facing Lynbrook? And what do you plan on doing about it?
The most important issue that is facing Lynbrook Village is the rising taxes. So our plan is to reduce taxes and stop the overspending. As a tax accountant with many years, I have a lot of experience working with big businesses, and I'm going to use those experiences to provide efficiencies within the departments. I'm going to look for ways to clean up the budget, instill a process to stop the overspending. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Ligori.
I think this is really a twofold question. Obviously, everybody wants to reduce taxes. That's a no-brainer. But the answer is, how do you do it? Well, one of the things we learn in business is called marketing. If we can get together with two marketing people, put a great marketing plan together, increase the profile of the village, go out and focus on the businesses that would do well and businesses that we need in the village. That will go a long way in helping reduce taxes and stabilize them. Number two, we want to help the veterans and we want to help the older residents that we have. We want to give them tax breaks. We want to help them stay in their houses for as long as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Neill.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. What, am I asking the right one here? About the most important issue.
Right. My most important issue is right now filling vacant stores, not only on Atlantic Avenue, but throughout the village. We have vacant stores on Sunrise Highway, Broadway, Atlantic Avenue. We need to get businesses back here. Because every dollar that is spent in this village, 70% of it stays in this village. You have to remember that. Money has to circulate, okay? We have to bring in the right stores. Lynbrook does not need 3.99 stores. I'm sorry. We don't need it. We need to, and that's deterring other stores from coming here. If you're a businessman, you don't want to open up where there's 3.99 stores. You want to open up where there's a thriving downtown and get foot traffic and have everyone, and that will help our tax burden for sure. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Baccio.
Yeah, in walking around the village for the last several months, going door to door, the resounding word we hear from residents is taxes. There's no question about it. It's a burden on our older population, and it's also a burden on those individuals who are looking to get into the village. What I've been a part of is a prudent financial management, which has resulted in this village having the highest bond rating, AA+ rating, in the history of the village. We've also looked at ways that we can potentially hold the line on taxes by asking department heads for 5% reductions across the board. In addition, through prudent financial management, we've accumulated $11 million surplus, which has put us in the position to have this bond rating, and also an evaluation by the Controller's Office, which says that we have one of the lowest fiscal stress in any village in the state of New York. So we address these issues through smart development, and that's how we address our taxes.
Thank you. All right, we're starting with you, Mr. Bella, this time. All right, so what type of development are you in favor of for the village, and what would you do to attract those new businesses to Lynbrook?
We are interested in home ownership, condos, co-ops, townhouses. We will work with developers, we'll put out an RFP, we'll also work to get, to develop a master plan, and we'll speak with the residents to find out their needs and concerns.
Thank you. Mr. LaGordy?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. What type of development are you in favor of, and what would you do to attract the new business to Lynbrook?
The type of development I'm interested in, and Antonella touched on it a little bit, I believe in co-ops. Co-ops because of the home ownership. We can bring younger people into the village, have them stay in the village, have their children go and grow up in the village, and pay their taxes. Now, in my capacity, one of my last construction jobs was Yankee Stadium. So I know how to deal with contractors. I know the right questions to ask the contractors. And I will assure you that any contractor that comes to this village will never be given a pilot program in order to develop. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. O'Neill, same question. What type of development are you in favor of in the village, and what would you do to attract new business to Lynbrook?
Well, first of all, we have to stop being in the village of no. We have to welcome any and all developers and hear what they have to say. And let them present whatever they have. If it's too big, then say sorry, thank you very much, and simply part as friends. Let's all not forget, 30 Daly, 40 Daly, 2 Fowler, 596 Broadway, or 590 Broadway, were all rentals at one time, and then they converted to condos and co-ops. And I want to thank Kathy Bean for reminding me of that. Maybe now, 20 years later, or whatever, X amount of years later, these luxury apartments that are built in other areas will be converted over to condos or co-ops. So we can't just sit there and say no, like the village of Lynbrook has been historically named after for X amount of years since I was 3 years old.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Baggio, same question.
First of all, let me quickly address the issue of the idea of co-ops and condos by the Preserve Lynbrook Party. I find it laughable that they've run a campaign that says that any kind of development is going to bring traffic, not impact, it's going to affect the schools and have a detrimental effect on all of our neighborhoods and raise taxes. I just can't wrap my head around the idea of how co-ops and condos are not going to have such an effect. That said, as Mr. O'Neill said, any development we should look at on a case-by-case basis and make sure that development is ultimately in keeping with the character of the village. We have to do a cost-benefit analysis. We have to look at historic background of whatever developer comes in here, and we do track these things by making the city, the village safe, beautifying it, and making sure that this place is a place that you want to come and not have the reputation that we're developing throughout this island that you cannot do business in Lynbrook. That's simply not how we're going to put the village in a better position.
Thank you. Ms. Reardon.
Yes, thank you. I agree with Mr. Baggio. What the important thing is here is to keep an open mind and look at all the development that does come into the village and see if it does fit to wherever it is, to the character of Lynbrook, and what the purpose of the development is. We do have to keep an open mind and review these contracts, and it is our obligation to do that. Once we accept and review an application, doesn't mean it's a yes. Doesn't mean that automatically we thought something looks good the first day we see it and say, let's see the next step. It is going to happen. So we have to keep an open mind and look at all different types of developments.
Thank you. All right, we have time for 2 more questions. Here we go, and Mr. LaGorry, you're first. How would you reduce or freeze taxes? What services would you reduce or increase?
Well, I want to be very clear on this. I'm not going to reduce any services in the village. The village is a strong village because of our police department, our fire department, and our DPW. They are, when you speak to people outside of the state, they wonder, you have all these services, you don't have to pay extra for them? These services make our housing value strong and they keep it strong. Secondly, in accounting you have 2 sides of the ledger. You have the expenses and you have the income. I would do a few things to increase the income side to hold the expense side down. One, and you'll hear more about this later, is several of our neighboring villages have a new program It's not the license plate reader, but it's similar, where they identify felons and nefarious people of that sort, stop them, confiscates their cars, and keep the money in the village. Freeport, I think, has about $1 million in their banks now because of this, and that will help reduce the taxes.
Thank you. Mr. O'Neill, same question. Sure. How would you reduce or freeze taxes? What services would you reduce or increase?
So, right now, we need to run our village like a business. We have accounts receivables and accounts payables. If I'm not mistaken, Rice Park took in roughly around $386,000 last year, and after expenses, we made about $126,000. So why are we going to reduce fees there and lose that money? For what reason? Because it's an election year? That's not why. I want to increase revenue. How are you going to increase revenue? It's not, you got to bring business in here, foot traffic. Like I said before, every dollar that's spent in this village, 70% if not more, stays in the village. We need stores to be filled, not vacant.
Thank you, Mr. Baccio. Sure. How would you reduce or freeze taxes, and what services would you reduce or increase?
Well, we would be in a position to reduce, that is freeze taxes, not reduce taxes. Freeze taxes, as I indicated earlier, we have an $11 million surplus. And we've accumulated that surplus based upon smart financial management over the last couple of years and keeping us under the 2% cap. That goes through prudent management. So in doing so, we're able to be able to hold off the line on our taxes so that we can pass that ease on to the residents. I find it interesting how, I'm not quite sure what Mr. Gloria's comments is with respect to there's not extra money cost for these extra services and they're free. They're not free. All these services, trolleys or anything else like that, they're all going to cost money, so I'm not quite sure you're getting the money for that. The Freeport issue with respect to the license plate readers, the fact of the matter is both CBS News and Newsday have done investigations on these license plate readers, and they're not making the money that they purport to do. And that's the reason why we haven't looked in that direction. So ultimately, we're going to want to expand the tax base and get businesses and foot traffic here.
Thank you, sir. Excuse me, no, I'm sorry, no response. You have your turn. Next question. Now, Ms. Reardon, your answer to that question.
Could you just repeat the question again so I have it?
Sure. How would you reduce or freeze taxes, and what services would you reduce or increase?
Well, what we are looking to do this year is freeze taxes. As Rob said, that we do have an $11 million surplus due to great financial management, and that is more than enough, and it is time that the taxpayers get a little bit of a break. We also utilize many federal, state, and county grants in order to achieve things in the village. Most of the stuff we do in the village and a lot of our improvements are done through grants. And then again, continually try to get new businesses to come in to increase the tax cap. And on the same issue of the ring of steel, yes, Freeport has made money at the detriment of their residents. Many of their residents get the tickets and have to pay the things as per the news reports that we read.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bella, same question.
Sure. How will I reduce or freeze taxes? I will use my education and my background as a tax accountant to look for ways to trim the fat in the budget, look to increase revenue by seeking new strategic development that does not require a pilot and put a tax burden on our residents, stop the overspending, run the departments more effectively, renegotiate contracts annually, or possibly even complete the services in-house instead of looking for third parties, and I will not reduce services within our village. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, this is the last question. We have to start with Mr. O'Neill. What is your vision for the village downtown? Am I right about that? Wait a minute. Should that be? Yeah, actually it is.
You did that.
Yeah.
3 times.
What is your vision for the village downtown? Village. I thought we were going to do this one last question, but if you're all feeling that that's fine, then okay, so instead we'll go straight to our closings, and by the way, we start then as the same way as before, and we started with Mr. Ligori. Okay, Mr. Ligori, you're first with your closing statement.
As I said, I've lived here for 62 years with my wife and 4 children. We absolutely love this town, or else I moved away a long time ago. One time I had about 40 first cousins, so I'm probably related to most of you people out there. I would never do anything to hurt this village. I would never do anything to hurt the veterans and the seniors. I would never increase their tax burden to the point where they have to wonder if they can stay in their house another year. I would never reduce any of the services of our fire department. As a matter of fact, I spoke to the police department. I'm looking forward towards helping them and buying them new chest plates, buying them better radios, not new old radios, so they would be in compliance with Nassau County. And the fire department has the best equipment that we could have out there. So I'm looking forward to 4 years of helping the village keep on growing and to the forefront of other villages. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Mr. O'Neill, your closing statement, 2 minutes.
I'd like to see this election go down in history, the largest turnout ever. We have over 20,000 residents. I'd like to see over 10,000 residents come out and vote. Let your voices be heard. Every vote counts in this election. When I am elected trustee, I am going to work with whomever is the mayor and the elected officials. And we're going to sit down, roll up our sleeves, and bring in more revenue to the village so that we're able to freeze taxes and then cut and reduce taxes so that we and our children are not going to pay for it down the road. We're going to work on beautifying Grice Park. This has to be done. I'm going to work with the DPW, keeping the village beautiful. Work with the police department, keeping Lynbrook safe and the best village to live, shop, dine, and play. All of us working together to bring change. A good change. Unity. This is what Lynbrook needs. To put Lynbrook, USA back on the map. No more negativity.
Thank
the vision.
You. Oh, sorry.
I'm cutting my 2 minutes.
I'm going to get an extra.
The vision and the values and the leadership which help our village become recognized as the best place to live and to raise a family are too quickly fading. We are scaring away any and all developers, businesses looking to come to Lynbrook. We're sending out the wrong message to potential residents looking to move to Lynbrook. We're making it more difficult for our current residents to sell their houses, condos, and co-ops, even their businesses. We need to stop with this nonsense, focus on our village and the issues at hand. Enough is enough. I believe Lynbrook would benefit from an independent voice and a different prospect. I would like to help Lynbrook move in the right direction. God bless you, God bless America, God bless the village of Lynbrook, and thank you for inviting me tonight.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Reardon, you are next. Sorry. Now I'm completely sorry, Mr. Butcher.
Thank you again to the Chamber and the League for hosting tonight's event. I would like to thank my family for their patience, understanding, and support during this very long and upsetting campaign. On March 19th, Lynbrook residents will have a very important decision to make about the direction of this village. On one end, we have a campaign built exclusively upon an intentionally misleading slogan, not a real plan for the village's future. It's run by people from Freeport and Manhattan who tell them what to say and what to do so that they can get elected. Lynbrook doesn't need this, nor want these people coming into our village with a plan aimed at dividing our neighbors and trampling over our long-standing relationships. Because I can guarantee you that when all this thing is over and the campaign is done, these same people won't be around to help mend what has been broken. On the other end, the New Vision Party candidates have formulated a plan that's forward-thinking and in the best interest of the village. Not financial gain, not professional advancement. Our 5-point plan aimed at focusing on taxes, rebuilding infrastructure, parks, enhancing public safety, and improving constituent services is a comprehensive and thoughtful approach towards preserving what we have and planning for future generations. As your trustee for nearly a year and a half, I believe that Lynbrook is on the right track, but there's still much work to be done. Given our proximity to the city and beaches, there's no reason why Lynbrook cannot be a thriving destination that remains true to its suburban roots. I am running for re-election to this board because I believe I am the most qualified candidate among the slate before you. I strongly believe in the ethos of public service and giving back to your community. It is the reason I dedicated half of my career to working for the public sector before I entered the private sector. And given the opportunity, I believe that my experience, background, and temperament will help Lynbrook stay on the right track, but by giving a pragmatic and independent voice to residents. As such, I'm respectfully requesting your support on March 19th.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Reardon, we're closing 2 minutes here.
Yes, I want to thank everyone for coming here tonight and taking time out of your busy lives, because this is an important matter. And I am very proud of our accomplishment. We have accomplishments. We have accomplished so much in the past few years. You know, to give some examples of what we have done is like the Regal Movie Theater, Starbucks, Northwell, you know, how these are all things that are coming to our village that is adding to our tax base. We also did the fire training center by headquarters to improve the training for our firemen within the village and giving them everything that they need. We have also equipped all of our first responders in the village with EpiPens, and we are one of the first villages ever to do so. And what I found out the other day is that we've used it twice. So 2 lives were saved because we fought for our policemen and our firemen to always have EpiPens on them and train them, which is an amazing accomplishment, and other villages are now following us. But you know, a lot of what of my concerns has been taxes, and we will work tirelessly and continuously because, like everybody here, I am a resident, and I worry about the future. I worry about my kids being able to afford the taxes. You know, and I'm proud to say that in my time here, in all my budgets, there's only been a 1.93 tax increase to the best of our abilities. And we are going to continue to work hard. We have so many good things in the works. We have done more roads than any other administration. We are going to continue to do roads. We are improving parks. We're improving the beautification of our village. And as I said, it is very special to be one of the second women trustees in this village. And I always give my heart and soul into what is going on. And I use it and I always give a truth and honest statement, because I think honesty at this point is key.
Thank you so much, Ms. Reardon, and please, Ms. Sandell.
First, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for moderating this event tonight. I would also like to thank my running mates, as well as all the residents that took the time to come to be here tonight, and for all those who met with us over the past few months to discuss the direction of our village. You can count on us to be there for you, to listen to you, and work with you to build a better community. Change is no doubt needed, and it's never been more evident than now. The residents deserve better, and we will never stop fighting for you. This is an important election because it's about the future of our village and the direction that we are going to take. There is a vast difference between our vision and the vision of our opponents. While our opponents are hiding behind flowers and pocket parks and ignoring the pressing issue of overdevelopment, we wish to preserve the suburban character of our village while encouraging strategic development, not projects that will give big tax breaks to developers that will ultimately push the tax burden on the backs of the residents. We wish to reduce taxes not by raiding our reserve funds or other shell games. We wish to increase our tax base, improve efficiencies within our departments, and control overspending. Our long-term goals are to keep property taxes down in these difficult times, work with our school district on future planning and development to ensure growth for our community that will not overburden our schools. As a small business owner, I know the difficulties we face each and every day. I am committed to helping our businesses downtown and across the village grow and prosper. I will also seek to attract new business to the community with smart incentives that will increase the tax base and revenue streams, but also add true value to our village. I will use my education and expertise as a tax accountant and project manager to make this happen. I cannot impress upon you the importance of voting for the preserved Lynbrook Party. Without your vote, the crony government and developers will have free reign over this village, and suburban Lynbrook will be a thing of the past. I always have and always will continue to fight for our village and our residents.
Thank you so much. Now, you all know where you're going to be on Tuesday, March 19th, voting for, I think it's 3 people for the village trustees. Congratulations, all of you. Thank you. And we're going to now do the mayor. Thank you. Thank you.